Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to ball watching, officially the off season for us. We are bringing you all the first, I'm not going to call it first episode of our next season. We're still, I think, in the 2023 mode here, Justin. We're kind of going to do a little bit of some time spending on the season overall and look at some of how our expectations panned out, which we did plenty of prior to the season. We're going to go into a little bit of a MLS Cup update outside of our elimination. We're going to talk about U.S. men's national team. They have some games coming up here as well. So a couple other topics to get to, but we have one very important topic, Justin, to start off with here. And that is going to focus on a really, really neat event that we, I think, have teased a couple of times here, but one that we are very proud of and super excited for coming up here. So breaking news for you all listening here on pod, on video, whatever format you choose. We have planned an event, a holiday-themed fundraiser called Hope for the Holidays, presented by us here at Ball Watching. It is going to be on Monday, December 11th, from 6 to 9 p.m. And it will be taking place at our lovely sponsors, The Pitch Athletic Club and Tavern, which I'm sure you've all been to. And this will be a ticketed event, and it's going to be one that you'll get plenty of perks for. There's going to be raffles, there's going to be food, there's going to be drinks, there's going to be a presentation from our beneficiary, which is BJC Foundation, specifically the Head and Neck Cancer Fund. So we'll have the chief head and neck cancer surgeon doing a quick presentation there and some Q&A for you all, as well as the feature presentation, which will be an actual roundtable interview with some St. Louis athletes. So to be announced on who that is. We have some exciting things in the work here. We know you all love the interviews that we do. So I'm super excited for that. I think it's going to be a heck of an event, and we would love for you all to be there. So how do you get in? How do you get tickets for it? It is going to be a public go live sale using Eventbrite. I'm sure a lot of you all have seen Eventbrite. That will go live at noon on Wednesday, this Wednesday, 11:15. So November 15th, Wednesday, this coming Wednesday at 12 p.m. Central. You can go on. We'll put the link out there, and you guys can buy tickets to this event. Obviously, we only have a certain amount that we are able to sell due to occupancy and other types of things, fire code for the pitch. But would love to see you all there. Obviously, it's all for a good cause. We're looking to raise a ton of money for BJC Foundation and our friends there. So wanted to start with some awesome news there and make sure that you all were aware of what's going on with Hope for the Holidays. It's our baby. It's our child, Justin. Justin, I know you had some Wi-Fi issues here, but I was just able to give everyone a little bit of a glimpse into Hope for the Holidays. But tell the people a little bit here what you're most excited about.
Yeah, sorry about that. I thought for sure I texted you too. I thought it was your Wi-Fi. And I just restarted my computer. But what am I most excited about for Hope for the Holidays? And you probably did some teasers on this, but some of the guests that we're going to have. And honestly, I just love the holiday season. Being back in the pitch, they've been so gracious to us and helping us out with this as well. I could not be more pumped for this event. I would say I feel like we've relatively cheap for all inclusive for 3 hours. So $80 is going to be an awesome night. And just being there with like your friends, family, everybody. And then with some of these local celebs we talk about that we'll probably drop names on later on who we're trying to get and bring to. But overall, just really pumped for that.
Yeah, it is. So like Justin said, it'll be $80 tickets. Some of you are probably like, oh, that seems kind of expensive. It's really not. I promise you, when it all comes down to it, we try to keep it as open as possible to reach as many of you as possible. They're all inclusive: food, drink, entertainment. You obviously, we can all hopefully meet you all and have conversations that aren't behind a virtual screen. So we're very excited for that. It's going to be a heck of an event, but we'll blast that flyer and a bunch more news on that starting from here on out. But look out, Wednesday at noon, this coming Wednesday, this will be a live sale, and we'll make sure that you all have access to that link, and you can go acquire your tickets. So that's Hope for the Holidays. Quite a way to start here, Justin. And let's get into MLS Cup, Justin. So just because we're out, we committed to it, and we're definitely staying close to it as well. Obviously, with a little bit of space, given we don't have as much to claim anymore, given that City is out. But we are heading into the conference semifinals. Obviously, in a couple of weeks, because there's an international break just slammed right in the middle of this tournament. But we have qualified 7 of those 8 teams as of this recording. So we have SKC is going to Houston. So Houston will be hosting that game. We have LAFC going to Seattle. LAFC, that losing the seeding to Seattle is looking like it might hurt them now in the tournament here. So that blows. Seattle, we'll talk about it in a second here, but that's interesting. Cincy hosting Philadelphia. And to be determined, my guess, because this game hasn't been played yet, it's playing tonight, is going to be Columbus is my pick to move on and match up against Orlando.
Yeah, we just came back from a wedding in Chicago, so I had a 5-hour drive to think about all the bets that I wanted to place, and I took Columbus money line tonight. Absolutely, Patrick Schulte in goal there for those guys. I think they're going to come out with that. And yeah, big thing before we get into the details of them, absolutely massive that for Seattle to get that seeding ahead of LAFC, because one, that is an extremely difficult place to play, and two, you're at home on turf, and I think that's very specific to some of these teams. And obviously, LA plays on grass, so. I think it's massive for Jordan Morrison team up there in Seattle to be hosting that game versus Dennis Bowanga.
Absolutely. No, I agree. And also recognize so far, I mean, assuming if Columbus wins tonight, then the narrative is the only one team that lost their seeding, and that the only underdog that came out of this round one was Sporting. And they were obviously the lowest seed after the wild card. So no big upsets in round one yet, but I will say the level of parity between these seedings, it's so close. Like a 2 versus 7, I feel like is really, really close for us. Like some of these series were pretty tight. So we'll get into it here in a second. But so Sporting Houston, not going to talk much about Sporting. You guys know all about them from our round one. Not much going on new besides Ndembe. So the left back that scored his first 2 professional goals in the MLS, obviously was a huge thorn in our matches with them. He went down injured in game 2. He tore his ACL. So he is out, obviously, the rest of this tournament, probably a good chunk of next year as well. But I know they've really been working on how they speed up those recoveries. Justin, you've had your own there. But Sporting definitely hamstrung a bit by that injury news, but they're facing off against Houston, who I think is a dark horse for me in this tournament. We obviously played them pretty tight in our second match with them, but they continue their renaissance in advancing under their head coach, Ben Olsen. Took down RSL in a penalty kick shootout. It was a 1-1 draw going into regulation, and they also had a shootout in the game prior in match 2 where they lost that in a nail biter as well. So, I mean, you talk about proponents for this, best of 3, like that was a really interesting and cool matchup to watch, because both those teams, really grinded at this game. They really wanted to advance. But I think the Dynamo, man, they're just a good team, well-oiled, fluid, dynamic.
Yeah, that really sucks for Ndembe. So, like you mentioned, thank you for bringing it up. I have torn both of my ACLs, in both of my legs. I would say typically, if you're not a professional athlete, 9 months is almost like your typical spot. I bet he's back in 7. But like you said, that would probably put him into April or May next year. So they'll definitely miss the first chunk of the season. And then I will say for Houston specifically, they are 11-2-4 at home, which I believe is actually, yes, it is the third best home team in the league behind Cincinnati and New England. So them having to go there without Ndembe is going to be extremely tough for Sporting Kansas City.
Yeah, I agree. And like Hector Herrera has been incredible this season. They just look like they know what they're doing. They look comfortable as well. I think Ben Olsen's done a fantastic job with them using his experience from DC United. And it's been a big turnaround. They missed the playoffs the last 5 seasons. And now I feel like they have a legit shot to at least get into the conference finals, which is something not only they would have said going into this season. So I definitely think that they could dunce Kansas City. They have everything going for them. Obviously, Casey's got some more of the negativity around the injury news, but and obviously going away is never going to be easy in a one-leg match. Remember, for anyone watching now, there's no more best of 3. There's no more home and away. It's just one leg, and it's the higher seed hosting. So they get one chance.
And third, I talked about how good they are at home. Houston away, 3, 9, and 5. 17 games. You told them beginning of the season you would only win 3 of your away games. There's no chance you even think that they'd make the playoffs, much less have the 4 seeds. So them playing at home is going to be absolutely huge for them.
And then another sumptuous matchup in the West, in the other conference semifinal.
What does that mean?
Is sumptuous, Justin? Yeah. Mouth-watering. It's appetizing. You're looking forward to it.
Okay.
Welcome to Dictionary with Jake.
Yeah, we're still trying to expand our vocabulary. Don't be mean. Don't be mean.
We are.
Jack.
We are.
Did we already mention about, so we just came back from a wedding. Did we talk about Jake's alter ego, Jack? Did anybody see that in our story or our post? That man was out and about last night.
Yeah, he was having some fun. We're actually blending the two personalities, though. I think they're really just the same person. It depends on who's looking at him, though.
Sorry, I got us off track. Keep going.
Going on to the next match, Battle of the Heavyweights, LAFC and Seattle. This one is going to be fantastic. I cannot wait for this game. LAFC, we know all too well. I feel like their offense is usually the star of the show, but defense is really what got them through in the second match. They put the clamps down, and they were able to, I think, really navigate the Whitecaps pretty well. And they really only had to count on a penalty in the 24th minute to get them through the away leg. And they got a shutout there. So it was a very experienced type match for them. Like, they handled it very, very well. Their only other game winning 1-0 this season, they only had one, and that was in June. So this is not a team that, has those really tight affairs. They play super open, but they manage this one super well. And Seattle, on the flip side, I mean, the playoffs are all about survival. Seattle's kind of on their swan song of this current roster of guys that are all kind of on the upper limits of I'd say the prime playing years. And we already know some guys are not going to be back next year, like Nico Ladero. So they're playing with everything, all their heart in this playoff installment. So very, very resilient team. Dallas gave them hell for sure, especially in the second match. But they were also just shorthanded, man. I mean, they were missing Ferreira. They're missing Alan Velasco. They only had one shot in the entirety of that second game. So Seattle just kind of navigated this one super well, I think. And I was always expecting them to get through into this stage. But now hosting LAFC, if they were going away to LAFC, I think it's curtains on Seattle. But with all the emotions and everything else going around, I feel like Seattle is probably the favorite in this game.
Yeah, I would assume so, honestly. But what's kind of nuts, Jake, I was looking at, so lines are not out yet because of the stupid international break that we have coming up, and they don't play for like 2 weeks.
Yep.
But LAFC is the second best odds to win the cup still at plus 275. The Sounders are plus 800. There might be a little bit of thought there. I'm taking the Sounders.
Yeah, you talk about know-how too. I know LAFC just won. They're the defending champions right now, so they have some know-how as well. But I feel like Seattle's just, those guys have been in Seattle for years now, and they've been to the stage in the tournament, and they know how to work their way around it and work their way through matches that may not be their plan A. So I have confidence in Seattle in this matchup too, but it should be very interesting. So the West has got two great matches, I would say. East, Cincy and Philly are in the first conference semifinal. I'm not going to talk too much about Cincy outside of game one. They absolutely just worked it. They were fantastic. And then game two was totally different. 38 fouls, Justin, in game two. In getting into this, that was the Red Bull game where, popular story here, we talk about Matt Miazga. So long story short, game two, Cincinnati won on PKs 8-7, but not before there was so much trauma. One in the game, super physical, crunching tackles. It was fun to watch, but Matt Miazga made highlights for an idiotic move, I would say. But also I found a really interesting rule here. So long story short, he picked up a first yellow for something he said to the referee right after full-time whistle. And the full-time whistle then brought them into PKs. So he gets a yellow, not even for anything in the sporting department. And then that was for disagreeing with it, a goal that would have been that ended up getting ruled out and them going into PKs for. And then after he scored his PK and they won in PKs, he ran to the Red Bull supporter section and made like the heart, kind of just mocked them. And obviously he got the works. I mean, they threw a ton of stuff at him, and like I don't ever condone that, but I mean, that guy, if anyone deserves it, it was him. I think I saw the stat, he's gotten like 11, 12 yellows this season, and 3 of them have been for like actual challenges and fouls. So we know what this guy's about. But Justin, we talk about rules. The last thing I'll say on this, and I'll let you speak up here, is there was a 2020 change to the laws of the game, and they said that cautions received during a shootout do not apply towards those received during that match. So he got 2 yellow cards in that match, and he will sit out a game because of accumulation, but he didn't get a collective red in that match because he received 1 at the end of full time, which would count towards the match, and 1 in shootouts, which does not count towards the match. Did you know that? It's pretty interesting.
No, I feel like that's an extremely like MLS specific type of
Yeah.
rule too. Like something that we would not hear a lot about. And the one thing I'm going to note on this too, Jake, you kind of said like long story short, they won the game. Absolutely didn't even mention that Tom Barlow, St. Louis native, was the reason that the game was tied and went to PK. So great for Tom there. Scored in the 45th. And yeah, Matt Miazga, absolute loser. And so if you actually think about, and maybe I have a little bit of an opinion on this because lost to him in the national final. He was in the Red Bull Academy. So that's why people are like, oh, and he went over like this and like mocking them. They're like, no, that's not him. Like some people were saying like, oh, he was actually like being polite, like giving them the heart. It's like, no, this guy is just being an absolute loser and going up to the fans that brought him up through the whole homegrown program. It's like, what are you doing, buddy? And just even coach mentioned it, like the fact that you said that he's gotten 11 yellows, but only 3 of them are actual for like tackles. That's just embarrassing. Like, grow up. I can't get over this guy.
Hey, good catch. Good catch there. No, but I agree. And I think Noonan also kind of said something just short of that as well. Like he's defender of the year this year. He won that award. And they're now without him heading into a crucial match, all because of him, doing the antics. Like I get it too. By the way, I don't think he would have been shown a card if it was just like a one and done, like running by, like a quick heart. And I think that's fair, still kind of an a-hole move, but he went back for it and then back for more. And he just doubled down on it. I'm like, dude, don't be that much of an a-hole. So he was, and he will pay the price.
Yeah, just literally extremely immature, and it's absurd. Like, imagine Phil if since he ends up going down, and like if they lose, like and you have to be on the bench watching this, like you are just a child, dude. I can't get over it. I'm almost embarrassed for the guy. I don't really understand how you can do that as a professional athlete. And like, that I like to talk a lot of crap, and obviously I do it on the podcast as well. I'm like into games, but there's a limit. You got to know where to stop, and he obviously does not know that.
Yep. Cross the line. They have injuries on the back line too. So we'll see what ends up happening with them. But it could make it for an interesting match against Philadelphia. And I have Philadelphia. I just want to talk really quickly about Jack McGlynn. He's an American. He is 20 years old, and he has been nothing short of a beast for this team. A huge cog in their system. In their clinching victory to send them to the conference semifinals. He whipped in a low, really great free kick that was redirected in by his teammate Chris Donovan in the 79th minute, and that proved to be the eventual winner against a 10-man New England side, 1-0 at Gillette. So they did that in the away game. And McGlynn, I mean, he was named number 7 in this year's 22 under 22 list of the best MLS players. He's one of those guys. He's a central midfielder, very creative, very, very reliable holding midfielder. And I'd say he kind of has some elements of Blum in his game. Like he's that holding guy, but he can also that final pass. Just in the playoffs, he's got 2 goals and 2 assists for a kid that's 20 years old. Played 1,600 regular season minutes. What a year for him, emerging as a key player for a good system that Jim Curtin, head coach of Philadelphia, runs. So I'm excited to tap him and watch his performance and see if this is a springboard for him to move to the next phase of his career. Obviously, he's an American. I'd take a lot more stock in that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say there's 2 guys that you have to really think about when you look at this Philly team, which is a very strong team. They have a 2-headed, almost 3-headed monster up top. When you look at, I'm going to get this wrong, Karza and Gazdag, they each have 14 goals this year. And one of them, and the Gazdag has 11 assists. And then you talk about for the other guy, they have 9 goals. So 3 guys up top with basically just actually turning the wheels for these guys. And then, they also have some experienced guys too, like Bedoya and a couple of these other guys. When you look down the list, is a very strong team. And I will say that it's not going to be an easy, like just walk. I was going to say walk in the cake, walk in the park. I was going to say like easy,
walk in the cake,
eat the cake, walk in the park, mix them up. But no, this is going to be a tough game for Cincy. And this is going to be one of the ones that I'm extremely excited to watch as well.
And this one also was in headlines too. It's Carranza and Gazdag, and those have been they're beastly forwards this season. And obviously, actually, Gazdag is more of a midfielder, but they were in the news for not great reasons as well, because Kai Wagner is a fullback for them, and he uttered a racial slur at Bobby Wood, deep cut for U.S. men's national team as well. But he used it on field during the match. They stopped the game briefly. The referee didn't end up doing anything about it live. After it being reported, MLS investigated, and he's suspended 3 matches now. So likely curtains for the rest of the season for him as well, even if they are to advance here. So another just instance of idiots. Like, I mean, that's a whole other thing, obviously. But what does it take to treat yourself and your teammates and the league and your profession like a professional? Like, and obviously there's a whole other human element of that as well that I won't get into here, but unbelievable for a key player for them to go down in that manner. It makes Miazga look a lot better. I mean, honestly, it does.
It does. Like, Miazga stuff was like childish. There's absolutely no room for racism whatsoever. I think that's extremely immature and not just childish, but that's so inappropriate. Like, I wouldn't even want that guy to be on my team. You can't back a guy for doing something like that. And that one, I don't even want, like you said, I don't want to touch on that. That's just absurd.
And the final leg of conference semis is going to be the winner of Columbus Atlanta, which has not been played yet, according to our time of recording. Thinking it's Columbus and then Orlando. And Orlando has just proven to be a team that not many people talked about, I would say, in terms of contending this year. Obviously, we struggled in our match against them. And they dispatched Nashville in round one. Super cagey series. They were both very, very tight affairs in both those games, but they got it done too. And I feel like so much talk was around Cincy and even our season around success, and they kind of flew under the radar. They have a club record high 63 points they finished on this season, second in the Supporter Shield race, and just lost only 3 regular season games since May, dude. They have 14 wins, 3 losses, and 7 draws in that time. So they've been stellar. Absolutely stellar in the run-in. And I feel like this team is also a little bit of a dark horse on the eastern side to really push Cincy if they can make it by Columbus or Atlanta.
And it's kind of insane to, like, you keep saying dark horse, and like, it's absurd that we say that, like, second Supporter Shield and all that, and like literally second. And like, obviously the East was way stronger in the West this year, but they are like, no one's really talking about Orlando, which is kind of surprising with how well they've done this year. Looking at Duncan McGuire, Facundo Torres, 14 goals, 13 goals for each of those guys. Obviously a two-headed monster up top. Extremely strong team. And if I'm Columbus or Atlanta, Orlando is not a team that I would want to be playing right now. I just think they're extremely strong through and through. Obviously, we gave them a good battle throughout the regular season, but I completely agree. I would say, like, when I'm thinking about like the MLS Cup and all these other things, I'm like, Orlando is not even one of the teams like I'm checking on to see how they're doing. I'm thinking LAFC, I'm thinking Cincy, I'm thinking Seattle. I'm not even thinking about Orlando, but yeah, they finished second overall in the whole season. Very strong team, and I would say it's insane to think about them as a dark horse, but they are.
And keep in mind too, Justin, because you explained this on the last couple episodes, is that if they advance to the conference finals and they're able to dispatch the winner of Cincy's series, which I think will be Cincy in this case, they will actually be able to host if the final, the MLS Cup, if they make it there, because they have to walk by Cincy, who has the only team that has more points than them, the Supporter Shield. So they could be on their way to hosting a MLS Cup final, which would be incredible for the city. So big ears, being paid attention to Orlando. Obviously, it's not going to be easy, though. Winner of Columbus or Atlanta, both have been pretty solid sides as well this season. So how does this close out for you all? We're on a little 2-week hiatus after today for the international break, and the conference semifinals and finals will resume November 25th through December 3rd, followed up by the MLS Cup, the actual final, on December 9th. So really, Justin, we're within a month of the close of the 2023 season, and it has been quite a year, but I think a lot of drama still yet to unfold.
Oh, so much. I would say for people that, I think you put it out on our Twitter poll. What were the actual percentages? I'm putting you on the spot. I can pull it up. People that are going to follow and like watch the rest of this. I don't know how you don't. Like, just because we're out does not mean that you should just turn this off. Like, this is going to be some exciting and very high talent soccer coming up in these next couple of weeks. I know we have a 2-week break or so, but look at these matchups. Just like you said, what was the word that you used for mouth-watering?
Sumptuous.
Thank you. I'm not even going to try to say it. I mean, like, we talk about this, like Sporting Kansas City. Yes, and I would hate another game, but they are hot right now. And going to a Houston team that's extremely strong at home, LAFC and Seattle are two of the strongest teams now, or the two strongest teams left coming out of the West with us out. Cincy, Philadelphia. Wow. Cincy, Philly is going to be a great matchup. And then I do think it's going to be Columbus versus Orlando. And this.
I think we might have lost you, Justin. So I get what you're saying, by the way. I'm
back.
You're back? Okay. I was going to say, we're struggling on the technical side today. Promise this is not going to be usual. We're also struggling mentally today. Like Justin said, we just had a wedding this weekend, and you can clearly tell that the cranberry vodkas, the beers, they're weighing down on the brains for this one. But we also kind of had to wash away the sorrows from this season, so you really can't look down on us too much for that.
No, I don't know what's going on with my Wi-Fi, dude. It says I have 5 bars, but I keep going in and out, so I apologize.
All good. So Justin, let's get into our sponsors before we get into the city season part of this show here, and a lot more to come still. But obviously, we talked about the pitch because of Hope for the Holidays, which we're planning. They've been such gracious and awesome partners of ours and sponsors, and it will be there. And I just want to say, I know we all had so much fun there throughout this entire inaugural season. But like I said in the last podcast, they don't go away just because it's not soccer anymore. So Blues games, Blues are rolling. They just thrashed Colorado last night. Obviously a great place to go watch those. Mizzou is flying as well. SLU basketball's back on. I mean, a lot of good sports still you watch, and it's still a great sports bar. A lot of cool soccer memorabilia. Don't get me wrong. But it's much more than just that.
And I would say, especially this time of year, like, it's that cozy vibe. You want to sit on a couch. It's nice and warm inside the pitch. You could literally change the channel anytime you want because they have iPads on the wall. This place is slick. Get there if you haven't gotten there before, or just go just in general. Even if you have, like, we'll be there all the time watching SLU, Mizzou, everything else, sports, anything that's going on right now. I love going to the pitch. Obviously, I don't think I need to touch anymore on that. Still frozen Irish coffee time. I don't care if it's cold outside. It's warm inside there. Get a frozen Irish coffee. And then, obviously, one of my favorites, Luis Manta and Soul Juice. Get Soul Juice. If you haven't tried it, I don't know how you haven't if you listen to us. Go to souljuice.com. Use code BALLWATCHING for 20% off. You can also go to Deerberg's or Sam's, opening up in some other stores as well coming up. This stuff is life-saving. I will say I've already had 2 today after the night that I had with Jack last time. So I would say if you haven't had it, go get it. And if you have, re-up, restock, and go get some more.
Absolutely. Okay, Justin, let's get into the meat and potatoes of this one here, the city season. And I'm going to keep it similar to how we usually do recaps. So by the way, we're talking 2023 season recap, not talking the pivot to like the future yet. We're definitely going to do that. About roster acquisitions and where do we need to fill holes. We're going to review. We're just reviewing on this one. So let's talk about the season, highlights, lowlights, get into player ratings and that kind of thing here. So Justin, let me start off. Let's start in the positives. What did we see this season? Broad themes that we were pretty excited about throughout the entirety of this opening season. I would say the first thing for me going into this is around system. I think our system was put on display. It was put to the test, this energy drink soccer. And it was, I think for the most part, pretty effective. We shocked a lot of teams early on, and I think it took a while for teams to adjust to us, to develop blueprints and plan Bs to navigate around how we play. But we were pretty relentless with the system, and I think it's one that we're going to build on for years to come. So I think we've got a great foundation in terms of system. I thought overall the team spirit, the team chemistry, and how they came together being an expansion team was also pretty impressive as we started this season, because you think about expansion teams, these are guys kind of transplants all from different teams and from different backgrounds and walks of life. And you put them all on the field and you say, okay, go play together. You're now St. Louis City. I was really impressed. I thought for such little time, as much as we tried to prepare, and we had MLS Next Pro obviously last year, what they were able to do in preseason and get off the ground so early on this season, I was very, very happy about. So system and overall kind of team spirit, camaraderie, chemistry are 2 big things for me. And then I'll kind of caveat that with obviously it's another big thing when you think about how we developed as well. Look at our team, look at our roster, dude. I mean, we're I think second overall on the bottom of how expensive our payroll is. What we're doing on that budget is incredible. We had I think 5 guys on the field simultaneously in a MLS Cup playoff game that played on MLS Next Pro last year. No other team can boast that. That's insane. The value we're getting from developing within is, I mean, probably a high bar to be set anywhere in the MLS right now. So I think we're off to a hell of a start from that perspective as well. So Justin, I've covered a couple things, but I want to hear some of your biggest highlights and thoughts as you kind of look back on this season.
And I apologize. I just gave up on my computer completely. We're going on the phone here, so we're just going straight at it. I would say one of my highlights, Jake, is literally doing this podcast with you. I'm gonna take a quick second and say, hey, this has been an unreal start for us. I mean, our season and everything else, but this has been an absolute blast for us. I would say just being there all season. I think for the biggest highlight, I would say that
Cincy game at home, yes, we ended up getting out. We got bounced early in the playoffs, but like a big highlight for us is taking down the Porter Shield winners. But what was it, 4 or 5-0?
Yeah.
We won that game, and just being there in person. And like I would say that, and then also another highlight just in general is the fans, the atmosphere, everything that they've done at City Park. That place has been blowing it out of the water every game. It's every time I get there, I get the chills, like thinking about like, wow, this is actually real. Look how many people actually care and support this team. And I would say, I know that's both of those are kind of like wishy-washy highlights, but just feeling very lucky to have this team.
No, I think so too. I love you brought up the atmosphere and the vibe. I think that was another one of mine that I hadn't even gotten to yet. But I think the atmosphere of City Park and the home field advantage we created for the team, I thought was awesome. Year one, obviously, you're seeing videos of our tifos and our supporters being shared around. I would say even globally, we definitely made waves as a franchise so early on. I would also say a little bit more on the sporting side here. So let's go into a little bit of that here, Justin. Goal output and efficiency. We talked about being ruthless. I know we complained a lot about it on the individual games, but if you want to talk about a ruthless team, you cannot look much further than our team here, because when you look at the percent or basically the difference between what we were expected to score, so XG, versus our actual goal output this season, we were the second best team in the Western Conference. We basically, all that's to say is that our difference on our expected goal differential ended up being a negative 7.5, which really just tells you, or 7.5, which really just tells you the difference between expected goals and expected goals against. But when you look at expected goals versus goals for, dude, we outperformed the crap out of our expected stats. So we were able to score a lot more than the stats actually gave us credit for. So kind of double-sided there. We were significantly outperforming expectations, but a lot of that's also because we were just quality finishing as well and making a lot out of small opportunities. So I thought that was a highlight, especially early on in the season. It felt like that. We were just banging whenever we could.
And obviously we finished extremely high. We always talk about like bulletin board material and all these guys, but if you look at it as well, it wasn't just that we finished first in the West as well. We had the second best goal differential in the entire MLS, only behind Columbus and Cincy. Sorry, third best. And then we had the fourth most goals with 62. You talk about like just blowing stats out of the water, and just the way that we started this season too. That's another highlight I'm going to say, Jake. One, we went to the first ever City game at Austin. If you haven't gone to an away game it's electric. And so just thinking about that and how we started this season, literally a dream come true. I was really worried. I know we're going to talk about different sections of the season here in a little bit as well, but I was worried like, wow, we started this hot, and we saying what all the people said, and they were right when it came to the playoffs. It's like, this team has to come back down to earth at some point. I was so worried, like, oh, we won our first 5 games. We were just going to tank and then just not make the playoffs. Like, no, absolutely exceeded expectations in every single way you think about this first season.
Yeah. Those are just some broad, I'd say, highlights, and that's definitely not like all there, and maybe we can layer some into as we continue to go. But I want to talk about some of the things that I saw and I deemed low lights, but really just areas of improvement, I think, for next season, and things I think we can definitely work on. One is games where there's a lot of pressure. Obviously, we started this season. We are the underdogs. Everyone picked us basically last. Maybe predicted a couple wins out of this team this year. And when you're in that position, when there's no one expecting anything of you, it's very easy to succeed. And we did that. And then when we were clinching the number 1 seed, kind of after that, the wheels came off. And I think it was an element of this mentality of we've been, looked down on for so long, and now we've kind of reached the pinnacle of at least the Western Conference for a regular season. What's left? And I think we just kind of lost that dog mentality that we talked about a lot during the season. And when we played these pressure-filled games where teams were the desperate ones and we weren't the desperate ones anymore, it felt like we couldn't regain that mentality. We couldn't match that level of intensity. And we saw that really come to life, I feel like, a lot in the playoffs. Another thing we saw was in-game management, specifically tactically. For me, I don't think we ever really found a true plan B, plan C, a way of playing that wasn't our bread and butter energy drink soccer, or just kind of a slight modification of it that let us control games when we were maybe playing up. That let us, look at different players and lift different skill sets, or just give teams a different look because they were very prepared to play against us towards the half to latter part of the season. So those are a couple of mine, and I think there are things like I think we can definitely improve on, but definitely lowlights for me as I look back in the season.
I would say, yeah, my low light, just kind of general, how we finished out this season. There was, after we beat Sporting Kansas City 4-1, we just didn't play good games after that. That's when we clinched. We went up to Vancouver and we were obviously already clinched. So I understand we were kind of making excuses, at least in my opinion, on the pod, like, oh, we clinched. We're going to rotate the squad and all this. Like you said, the wheels came off. Like, we lost to Vancouver 3-0. We lost to Seattle 2-0. And then we closed out the season. We literally closed out the season with 4 straight L's. And that's just not something I don't know if it's experience or what we want to kind of put that on towards the end of the year, but it's not with how exciting we started and finishing first and like getting bounced in the first round. Not only just thinking about it from like I know Kansas City's hot, but like a 1 versus an 8 seed. That just doesn't usually happen in other sports. If you think about that, it's a little embarrassing in my opinion on the way that we did go out. I just don't think we looked good in either of our games either. And I feel like I was probably making excuses like, oh, we're going to bounce back on this one and like trying to stay positive. But looking at it, like ending the season with 4 straight L's, just not good whatsoever.
Yeah, it's a bitter taste in the mouth. It's kind of a black eye on an otherwise great season. I definitely agree with that. I think some other things that we saw were injuries. Obviously, we didn't get to play with Nilsson for most of the season. We basically didn't have Rasmus Alm for most of the season. And there's other injuries. Obviously, we lost Klaus for a huge chunk of the season. We lost Leuven for a little chunk there as well. And guys had little injuries, here and there. And that happens definitely. But you want to limit the long-term ones like that and the recurring ones. My last thing I'll say is another thing tactically was in-game management of subs. I always just kind of felt like subs were a little bit leaving some to be desired in terms of not like their impact. Sometimes it was them and did they make an impact or not? But also sometimes it just felt like it was a little bit too late. And I want to see a little more proactivity, I think, going into this year. And maybe that you can be doing that when you have a deeper bench, or maybe there's just more of a confidence thing there as well. But I did kind of feel like we were late to the game on that in a lot of these matches where they're coming on, but it's just not with much time to make much of an impact at this point. So those are some of my broader, I would say, lowlights. But Justin, you already brought us into this topic, so let's just hit it while we're here. We broke out this season, the regular season, into 3 chunks, and they make a lot of sense. They're different durations, but basically chunk 1, phase 1 was Feb 25, so our first game against Austin, through April 22nd, when we then transitioned to the US Open Cup. That was 9 games. We went 6-2-1, absolutely crushed it. 21 goals for, 10 against in those 9 games. We beat all the early expectations. We saw Klaus emerging to be this rock star up front. Leuven, the composer behind the scenes. Berkey looking like he's totally earned that contract and that salary. People still, the pundits, they'll come back down to earth. They'll regress. They can't keep this up. So they can shove it. But that first tier was just electric. Do you remember how much fun that was? It was insane.
Oh, it was absolutely electric. But I will say, it just made me chuckle when you said they could basically kick rocks, pound sand, whatever you want to say nicely about this. But then, unfortunately, Jake, when we look at 429 to 715, 14 games there, we went 7-6-1. So we definitely came back down. And I will say a lot of that is because we were out. We didn't have Joao Klaus. What was it? Is it 19 games?
That was it. Yep. He missed that entire chunk. Yep.
Yes. It was absolutely absurd. And we kept talking about it. That was another thing. You kept telling me like, oh, he's not going to come back until this date. And I'm like, no way, dude. Like, it literally said 10 to 14 days. And you were correct on that. And then also you mentioned this about Rasmus Alm. Is he alive? I feel like you said that or thought about that human in years.
I know. It's a bummer. Yeah, no, he was low-key, out probably just as long as Klaus, just in different bits for the season. But yeah, so like you said, Justin, 429 to 715. So throughout the whole summer, then Leagues Cup for us. During that time, we went, US Open Cup. We played the dual matches against Chicago. We saw AZ really emerge in the US Open Cup when he had a beautiful game against Union Omaha. We had a really tough stretch in June from 6-7 to 621 with 3 losses and a painful home draw against the Galaxy, if you remember that. And then we followed that up, though, by winning 4 out of 5 in the lead up to the Leagues Cup. And then Leagues Cup takes place. So this next phase is from August 20th to the last game before the playoffs. So 10-21, 11 games there. We went 4-4-3. So definitely our worst phase of the season. Obviously, Leagues Cup didn't do much for us. Crew and Club America just dispatched us. And we technically qualified for the playoffs, looking back on it from a points perspective, on August 20th. So at the very beginning of this phase 3, we were already in the playoffs. That's obviously in hindsight. We didn't know that then. Our model would have told us that then. But it's kind of sad to think about how poorly we've performed after that, because after Austin, where we absolutely thrashed them here at home, we picked up 12 points in the final 10 games played, and we only scored 2+ goals for once, and that was against Sporting. You talk about limping into the playoffs and limping your way to the end of the season. We definitely did that, and I think, Justin, you and I tried to, take some hits of the hopium and really try to turn this around and give some positive spins on this, but it was a really rough way to end.
It was extremely tough. And the one thing, and I do want to give you a lot of credit for this. We talked about it before the season. You're like, what is that line that you would typically expect to make playoffs? You kept saying 45. If you look at it, that was spot on. Anything, if you made the playoffs in a wild card, Kansas City and San Jose each had 44 points. And then looking at the East, New York and Charlotte had 43. But otherwise, if you actually made the playoffs without the wild card, you had to have at least 45 points. So I did want to give you a quick shout out for that and congratulate you on that as well. But yes, we talked about it. We almost limped into the playoffs and then got absolutely stomped. And the one fact that I like to say on this one, Jake, is that we did not have a single game all season where we scored 2 goals and lost. We either tied or won every game where we scored 2 goals. And I think that really helped to show that we could clamp teams, put the defense on them. But I will say, then we get blown out by a couple games, like Vancouver 3-0. And some of those, Club America, we got absolutely dusted. Do you remember that? Those guys are quick. That was insane. Really put this thing into perspective. Like, everybody's like, oh, what is this Club America team? Like, is this even going to be a good game? Like, because they thought we were going to blow them out. We got absolutely dusted.
Yeah, it wasn't much of a game at all. But let's go into the recap of our predictions for the season. I want to do a whole episode on player ratings. I think we could talk a lot about the players and our thoughts on their performance this season, because there's so many of them, and we were so fortunate to blood so many different players throughout the entire season and get meaningful minutes to. So we'll save that for a topic here. But I do want to go back to our predictions for the season that we recorded in our 36th episode. I think we're now at like 100 plus. Well over that at this point. This is back in February, so we have no knowledge of any meaningful games whatsoever. And Justin, we put together our predictions, and in our predictions, it was like superlative. So we'll go into this here in a second. But some key questions that I asked us and we answered live on this podcast was: can younger or more inexperienced players develop into first team contributors for us? Do we play with a collective kind of chip on our shoulder? I would say definitely yes to the first question. We had some young players that we leaned on very, very heavily. We also had some guys that we thought had more experience that didn't really translate either, and we'll get into that. But the chip on our shoulder, I think we showed that through that first phase, maybe even the second phase of the season. But I think it kind of fell off when we saw and reaped the rewards from being so quality, especially in that first part of the season. I don't know your thoughts on that.
No, I definitely agree. And when you look at our age, I pulled up transfer market, and this was I'm going to ask you a quick question, Jake. Do you know who has? So we have Joao Klaus, Joachim Nielsen, and Edu Leuven are our 3 most expensive guys based on transfer market. Our 5th is Roman. Do you know who's 4th ahead of Roman? Give you a hint. We're already talking about young guys.
Ostrak?
Mickey. Mickey's worth $2 million.
Wow.
Mickey's 18 years old. So we were talking about young guys. Looking at him, I mean, Isak Jensen, I know we shipped him off. He's only 19 as well. Indy's only 22. Blum's only 23. Like, we really relied pretty heavily on some of these guys. And I know that you already said we're going to talk about more specifics on some of it when we do player ratings. But the last thing I want to say on a little bit of a low light, did Nokvi Thorson die? Like, what happened?
Yeah. I think he's more of a long-term play. I think that was one that they just had to throw him into the mixer in the beginning, and we needed guys out there and we needed something. But I do think that was more of a long-term move from Lutz and Carnell. So I wouldn't throw his skill set or his appearance away just yet. I think we're going to see a lot more from him. He's here for a long-term contract. So they're thinking long-term with him. The other questions we asked were, can our high ceiling players become our stars? I think those high ceiling guys mostly did. Roman Berkey really comes to mind. Nilsson, jury's still out, I would say, on that one. But I'd say Klaus, you'd say another guy has a high ceiling. I think he really paid off. There might be a couple exceptions there as well. Can we master our system? I think we mastered it for the most part, but I think now our system needs to evolve as well. So we've got kind of the first step down of let's just get a foundation. And I think now we need to build on that and start to branch out a little bit more. So I think yes to that question. Is Carnell really capable at this level? I think he proved pretty much so. He should win Coach of the Year here. And yes, didn't go well towards the latter part, playoffs even. But I do think for the most part, he proved that he belongs at this level and he can do a lot with very little, I would say.
No, I'll agree on that. And I guess one last highlight I want to say too, Jake, is did you see Lutz's Instagram? I think he posted it 6 hours ago. My favorite part about the entire thing, and Sam like clapping with the guys like after we lose the Kansas City game, but 2 paragraphs in, he goes, "It's important to remember that this is year 1 of a 5-year plan."
Yeah.
Yes, we were first teams out of schedule. We met our objectives, but that's never enough. And that just gives me so much excitement for this team moving forward. And you talked about it. I do think Bradley Carnell should win Coach of the Year with what he did and breaking so many records for us. But I just wanted to drop that little fun fact.
I love it. I love it. I definitely think there's a lot more than just what we saw this season. I think that's why he's turned down interest already from overseas and other clubs, because he wants to see that plan at least make it further towards that 5-year mark. So our superlatives for the guys this year, we found it obviously really tough when we were picking all this because we still had no context of anyone's playing for City ever. But Golden Ball, so our MVP for the year, I had put in here Ostrak, Leuven, and Nilsson. And I think Leuven's a fair candidate for sure of those 3. Ostrak, I did not pan out this year. I'm still hoping that we can get more from him because I think we invested a good amount in him. And Nilsson, I wanted to give a full season before I really, like I said, the jury's still out for me. But I do think Leuven really came forth. I would say you'd probably throw Berkey and Klaus into that as well now in hindsight.
Yeah, so let's talk about this, Jake. We'll do it as we're kind of talking through what we projected. So we thought Ostrak, Leuven, and Nilsson. I would say, who is your actual winner like after the season? We'll talk about what our guesses were and what we would agree to be now. I think our golden ball is absolutely Roman Berkey. I think
100%.
Leuven's the one to have there, but like you take Leuven out of this team compared to taking Berkey out of this team.
Yep.
It's not even close if you think about it in that way, in my opinion.
And shout out to him. We didn't mention it yet, but he won goalkeeper of the year. We plugged it on socials, but he did win that very deservedly so. Golden Boot. So most goals for us this season. I had Klaus, Alm, and Joaquini. I think we were really close on this. If we had seen Alm for a full season, maybe he'd be in that conversation as well. But I think we were really close there.
I mean, looking at our goals, Joao and Nico both ended the season with 10. Imagine if Joao had a full, like he missed 19 games, had 10 goals. Like that's how you got to think about it. Unfortunately, Jake, no, we were off on Alm. He only had 3 goals. But yes, I agree though. He literally only played 21 games and only started 13 of those. So give him another full season and being in it. But yeah, I mean, Joao and Nico, I would say are for obviously just numbers wise. But I will say if anybody was to get it, if it wasn't based solely on how many goals that you had in total, Sam Dinaran. The man played 18 games and had 8 goals. And so I know Joao only played 19 games and had 10, but Nico played 32 and only had 10 goals. And not only, but I'm just saying when you look at like a timestamp for you multiply Sam Dinaran by 2 almost, he'd have 16. Joao by 2, he'd have 20. So that's where if they played a full season, they would have easily kind of ran away with it.
Yep. Agree. Golden Glove obviously went to Berkey. Lund only got in for 1 actual regular season game. So very easy call there. I think we'll probably need to lean on a little bit more of a split next year because Berkey obviously looks super tired heading to that. And I don't know if Lund's that guy or if there's going to be someone else they bring in there. So something to keep an eye on. Best really young player for us. I had put in here Owen O'Malley, who, if you remember, he was our draft pick that I think we all had pretty high hopes for in terms of making some level of impact. It was a position of need at right. And then I also had Aziel Jackson and Indy Vasilev. Very, very strong finish on that nomination category. Owen O'Malley, I don't know if he has a future with the club. I know we have an option that we can choose to pick up here or not, but I have a feeling we might cut our losses there. Not that there was too much really at stake for us, but Jackson and Indy, incredible young players. Miggy Perez, I don't even think it's signed for us at the time here. So that's why I didn't even put him here, but obviously he had a great stretch in the early part of the season as well.
Yeah, we look at young players. I'm literally just looking at by age. I mean, Caden Glover had a little bit of a stint there. Yep. I'm excited looking forward for him. He is currently 16 years old, born in 2007. Miggy Perez, only 18. I agree. I think he started hot and then really fell off. Like, I don't even know if Miggy got minutes in the last, 10 games of the season. So, Jensen's only 19. I know we shipped him off, but I would say AZ for sure. Being only 21 years old in the spark plug, and he really stepped up when we needed someone to step up. So, I'd say between him and Indy, I feel like Indy during the whole season was always kind of there, but AZ being that spark plug as we needed is probably, for my opinion, of our best really young player.
Yeah, I agree. And we had obviously most of our team is pretty young, so that's a good call out that it's tough because where do you draw the line at young versus really young? But breakout player, Oh, I had here 2 candidates, and I put Blum and Vasilev. And I honestly could put stock into both of those. I said breakout player and thinking about it more of this is going to be the platform for them to launch their career on. Leuven had already had a career in Germany. I'm not saying it was the best, but he already had a career. And I think you probably want to go to him in that. So that's why I didn't put him in this in the initial part. I put Blum because Blum was pretty much an unknown quantity coming from South Africa. And we knew that he was good. Obviously, they were going to miss him on Kaiser Chiefs. But we knew that he also hadn't played in a big league like this yet, and we wanted to see how it translated. And I thought he was fantastic for the most part of the season when we did get him inactive. And I thought Endy, again, had a great season as well. One of his best professional seasons, I would say. Obviously, he got a shot at coming back to the men's national team picture for the under 23s. So I was super happy for him there.
Yeah, I would say breakout player for me, at least on this season. I will say, just because I didn't know a whole lot about him, was Blum, and I know we have some reserves about him on how the season kind of finished. I feel like he kind of dropped off there, but huge season for him, getting called up to the South African national team and being from all down there with those guys. So I would say, in my opinion, who actually won it, it'd probably be Blum. But I will say, Indy stepped up big time as well. And as we're looking at this shape, we kind of have Indy in all these things.
Yeah, we do. I mean, that's because he's such a utility man. I mean, it's just that's just how it is. The last 2 awards we have is just the filthiest player, the person that can just embarrass people. I had Vasilev, Pedro, and Alm. So Pedro went out on loan, did not get many minutes at all this season. Alm obviously suffered a lot of injuries. I think all of them pretty much abdominal for this season as well. But Indy is a pretty filthy player. He definitely puts some guys on skates here and there. But I would say my actual filthiest player, like who I think has the best footwork for our team, it's got to be Celio. It's got to be Celio Pompeo. I mean, the guy is absolutely master.
If any other name came out of your mouth, I was going to tell you you're wrong. Celio is by far the dirtiest guy, and I think it proved even at the end of the season. You're still proving that in the last game versus Sporting. So I would say for sure, like any guy that I would absolutely crap my pants was coming at me, it would be Celio. It would be the one I'd be most scared of. You know who I'm not scared of coming at me? It would be like Tim Parker. So I was filthiest guy of all time, Celio. Least filthy, probably Tim Parker. And that's not a knock to him, just being a center back. Same with me. I can barely do a step over. So Celio, though, would probably do a rainbow around me and then knock a absolute bike into the back of the goal anyway. So Celio is for sure the filthiest player.
And you mentioned Tim Parker. Shout out to our defenders out there. The Thou Shall Not Pass Award. The entries for this one that we had before the season were Parker, Nilsson, and Nerwinski. It's kind of cheating because Parker's a former defender of the year. He was in this year's installment as well on the short list. I think you have to go Tim Parker. I mean, he was obviously getting league accolades and attention towards that. I think he had his best professional season, especially from a goals output. The guy was just on the score sheet pretty frequently this year, which is awesome to see. But he was a leader. He was a great defender. He was a lot quicker than I think we expected him to be. He's definitely, I think, our most stout defender thus far. I want to see a full season of Nilsson before I really can confidently say like that season. Right now, he's definitely our best defender in reference to Parker, but I could see Nilsson making a case for that next year.
Oh, definitely. This is for sure a Tim Parker award, in my opinion. Not only just like you said, like cheating because he was in the like defender of the year, but think about it this way, Jake. Like we had a lot of different starting back lines. Parker was always in there. Like we were changing right back, left back. Yara would hop in when Nilsson's out there. Hebert would hop in. I mean, we're looking at Nerwinski. We're looking at Akil Watts. We're looking at Markinick. We're looking at John Nelson earlier on in the year as well. But it was always Tim Parker at that right center back spot. So he's for sure our best defender, at least this season. I agree. I think going forward, it should be Joakim Nielsen. But we'll see how Tim does going next year as well.
And then overall, I don't have yours here, but I'm sure you were pretty close to me in terms of what we expected in terms of a record this season. And I actually think I did pretty well. I had written down and said 14 wins, 14 losses, and 6 draws. So a team that can win, a team that can also lose. And every once in a while, they'll get a draw. And I said so that's 48 points, and we'd sneak into the playoffs. We ended up 17 wins, 12 losses, and 5 draws. So definitely better than what I said, but I wasn't that far off. And I think a lot of pundits would have given me a ton of crap for saying anything close to what I said. So I'm actually pretty proud of that.
Yeah, Jake, I think I was pretty close as well. I'm pretty sure I said first in the West, 56 points. I would say, and we talked about it, I think, in a lot of these other like podcasts that had us on, they're like, oh, you guys were winning like 5 games. The MLS is tougher than what you think. I would like to tell them to kick rocks, and obviously hang this up in their room. But I would say I think I expected us to be wild card range, so like 45 points, like we talked about it. Like we just wanted to be in contention to make the playoffs, not even in contention to win the cup. But I think we obviously blew that completely out of the water.
Yep. And so let's wrap into here. We were plus 5,000 in the West, by the way. For all you futures bettors out there, that would have made a pretty penny. The way we wrapped up our show for the season recap was what does success look like? And we layered it into a couple different things. We said one was demonstrating commitment to our playing style, recruiting based on that, and our overall view on soccer. Check. We said competition for roles and starting positions. I think there was great competition. We saw a lot of different faces this year. Third, some high ceiling or high potential players prove their worth. I think we saw that. Maybe we could see a little bit more of that, but I think we definitely saw some of that. Fourth, what do the fans want to see? Goals. We scored a load of them. That's definitely a check mark. And then challenging for a playoff spot, we got our money's worth there. Obviously didn't get our money's worth in the playoffs, but clinching the top seed in the West was something that not many, if any, people would have predicted. So I think overall, we did okay on the season preview. I'm curious to see how we'll fare with a year under our belt now. But all in all, a fun year to look back on. And honestly, I think we were very optimistic heading into it, but in hindsight, rightfully so.
Yeah, I'll say when you say like some high ceiling or high potential players, and you talk about we saw so many faces. We got to find the stat when we go and do the more specifics on like player ratings for the season. But like we had to have had the most amount of lineup changes in the entire season. I think that's Lucas's favorite thing. I think we started the same team twice in the entire season, which is just absolutely absurd just for highs and lows of guys and how they're playing with form or injuries. So I would say we got so many guys involved. That was extremely helpful. And I really thought that was going to help us as we would go into the playoffs and have more legs. I think LAFC right now is actually going to be running on fumes with the amount of games that they played. But we had so many different guys come in and play games. It was extremely exciting to see. And obviously very easy for us to talk about a team like this. But overall, just an incredible first season for the podcast and for the team.
Amen. And what a great closing there, Justin. So there will be another installment of this, but focused on players. We'll pull out the report cards, pull out the highlighters, and take to it and have some fun here. So join us all for that coming up here. But this has been our recap of the season and all the themes and storylines that went through this season. I'm sure we've missed some things, and we'll definitely circle back to it. But we'll hit the players in a full episode here. But it's great being back with you all. It's been a week now since our dismissal from this MLS season, but we miss you all, and we'll definitely be back for another episode here coming out here soon. In the meantime, go get your tickets on Wednesday to Hope for the Holidays, presented by Ball Watching. It's going to be a fantastic event, and we will put out as much as we can so you all know all the details and can go get your tickets in time.
Yeah, it's going to be an incredible cause. I feel like we appreciate everybody coming up to us. And I do want to say a quick thank you, Jake, to the fans as well. So anybody that could see us at the games and come up, and I see people like Cardinals game, like, are you Justin on Ball Watching? I'd like, it was extremely nice for them. But if you guys just want to hang out with us, get some drinks, Hope for the Holidays. It's going to be an incredible night. Monday, December 11th. Go buy your tickets. It's going to be awesome, I promise.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for tuning in today. Feel free to throw us a like and subscribe, follow the show, favorite, show us some love. It's been a long season, but we're here for it. We're super excited about what's to come and what has just transpired. And we're glad that you all are along for the ride. Everyone have a great rest of your week. We'll catch you all soon. Not exactly sure when yet, but you'll definitely catch us on Wednesday for the release of these tickets. So go get yours. Hope for the Holidays. It's coming. You better be there. And for now,